Hello, I'm Dr. Tara Palmatier of shrinkformen.com. Welcome to my channel and thank you for watching. If you have a question or would like to schedule a session with me, you can reach me at shrinkformen@gmail.com or shrinkformen@protonmail.com, and both of those email addresses can be found in the About section of this video. The topic of today's video is, will my borderline ex be different with the next guy? Or narcissistic or histrionic or whatever variation of these cluster B personality traits your ex has. Will they be different with the next guy or lady, however you roll? This is a question I've received a lot over the years, either through email and certainly from my clients in session. So let's just jump right in. This is adapted from an article that I published on my site, shrinkformen.com, back in, I believe, 2022. So here we go. Are you wondering, will my BPD ex be different with the next guy? Maybe you're asking yourself, am I giving up too soon? Should I try harder? Maybe things will go back to how they were, or worse. Will the next guy get all the love, sex, and nice version of her that I could have had if I just stuck it out a little longer and loved her harder? So will your borderline, histrionic, or narcissistic ex be different with the next guy? In a word, no. But here's the thing. You're asking the wrong question. Instead of wondering, will my BPD or NPD ex be different with the next guy? Ask yourself, will my borderline or narcissistic ex love bomb the next guy or gal? And the answer to that question is abso-freaking-lutely. That's their playbook. Idealize, devalue, discard, boomerang, hoover, discard, repeat. Well, sometimes you don't get the boomerang hoover. And if you don't, consider yourself lucky. I know for some of you that hurts. Like, what? I'm not good enough to hoover? You don't want these people circling back around and around. It's traumatic. Okay, moving on. So, sure, your ex might make a few superficial tweaks during the love bombing phase with her next victim, but meaningful changes, the kind that lead to a healthy relationship based on mutual respect, trust, and love, not a chance. It's not going to happen. Okay? Now, the window dressing might change, but the shit show behind the public-facing false self is the same one you have already survived. Maybe now she's posting photos of venison dinners on Instagram because the new guy, the new you, the new Mr. Wonderful soulmate is into hunting. Funny, especially when she used to give you hell for eating a cheeseburger while preaching veganism when you were married. Or suddenly she's the life of the party, hitting up every club and restaurant with the new supply. Yet, when she was with you, you had to beg her to go out when you were still together. Rest assured, when the devaluation stage begins, that shiny new version of her will fall apart, just like it did with you. And just like before, it'll be his fault, and the next guy's fault, and the next, and the next, and the next, and so on, and so on, and so on. So here's another better question than, will my BPD ex be different with the next guy? And that is, do borderlines, narcissists, and histrionics change in the ways that matter? Now, if you're hoping your ex might change in a meaningful way, like a lasting, meaningful way that would make being in a relationship with her or him at the very least tolerable, here's the hard truth. They won't. Stop waiting for integrity, empathy, or accountability. Emotional psychology, bleh, emotional and psychological maturity, yeah, it's not coming. It's not going to come for you. Any changes your BPD or NPD Ex makes in their next relationship are just surface level tweaks, okay? They are superficial adjustments to their love bombing tactics, not signs of real emotional growth. And by the way, these changes are target specific. When a borderline narcissist or histrionic love bombs you, they mirror your identity and values. And with the next guy, they will mirror his. The so-called changes are just a reflection of their new target. That's it. And here's the kicker. Their actual personality or personality disorder, as the case may be, does not change. What you see is their true self coming out once the love bombing ends. Now, they might switch up their manipulation tactics. Maybe they'll move from guilt tripping to playing the victim or and then give themselves a shiny new public image. But who they are at their core, that stays the same. When you're in a relationship with one of these individuals, over time, they reveal who they are. They don't change who they are. See the difference? Okay, now let's move on to the next section. The love bombing or idealization stage has an expiration date. Relationships with borderlines, narcissists, and histrionics are like a reverse course meal. It starts sweet and satisfying, but ends in the devaluation slaughterhouse where you're picked apart and left with nothing. In the beginning, you're served all the decadent dessert, right? That's instant intimacy, instant connection, instant trust, and instant love without any real effort. It feels like magic. But after the sugar high fades, you're left starving for the real substance that never comes, but you're hooked. Once you're psychologically dependent on their validation to feel good about yourself, you will keep paying and paying until you've got nothing left to give. Eventually, you're either discarded or kept on standby just in case they need something from you, or like I like to call it, standby supply. You do not want to serve in that role. In healthy relationships, trust, intimacy, and emotional attunement are built gradually over time, not in a whirlwind 36-hour first date. But with a borderline narcissist or histrionic, the love bombing always has an expiration date. Once you're attached or bound to them in a way that's hard to undo, whether it's through marriage, kids, or just emotional change, they flip the proverbial switch. This is one reason it's so gut-wrenching to leave after the mask slips and the abuse starts in earnest. The devaluation stage often begins with subtle boundary tests. A bad day tantrum here, your friends are more important than me, silent treatment there. You see, they're testing how much abuse you'll tolerate. The truth is, you've already failed the first test during the love bombing stage when they were gauging how much control they could exert under the guise of romance, passion, and connection. You'll likely find yourself blaming yourself. If you're anything like my clients, wondering what happened and trying to recapture that magical beginning without realizing it was never real in the first place. Okay, moving on. Love bombing is a boundary test. Yes, it is. It is not real. It is not romance. Love bombing is essentially a great big old boundary test. So, love bombing is not just about flattery. It is a covert test to see if you have boundaries or if you're primed for exploitation. In other words, the love bombing stage is, as I said, one big boundary test. The overwhelming affection and attention are designed to make you ignore warning signs, clouding your judgment. For example, did you listen to all her victim stories on the first date or first few weeks? This is called trauma dumping, by the way. Did you take on the role of protector, hero, rescuer, or fixer? Did you start fighting her grudges and joining in on her grievances against people you'd never even met within days of knowing her? Did you blindly side with her against everyone on her enemies list? And yeah, they all have an enemies list, okay? And by the by, that's not normal. It's not normal. Did you provide financial assistance soon after meeting her? Did you allow and respond to physical touch within minutes of meeting them, like putting a hand on your arm, leg, or pressing against you when there were other seating options? Did you jump into bed right away? And now that's not a moral judgment. Consenting adults do whatever you want to do. But that can often be an indication of somebody who is trying to accelerate intimacy and bypass what I would call the healthier relationship building stages. Did you provide her with housing after knowing her for only a short time? Like you let her move in after 6 weeks. Again, that's nuts. What are you doing? Don't do that. Did you meet her kids within a few days or weeks? Did you take vacations together shortly after meeting? Now, there are more indications there are more love bombing boundary tests here. These are some of the more common ones I hear in my practice. So if any of these sound familiar, you've already been through the first big boundary test. Your susceptibility to being love bombed is how these individuals gauge whether you have any real limits. Healthy, non-codependent people don't eagerly lap up love bombing like a thirsty animal at a watering hole in the Sahara. For emotionally stable adults, love bombing feels inauthentic and overwhelming. It's just too much, too soon. Once the borderline narcissist or histrionic senses, whether consciously or unconsciously, that you don't have solid boundaries or that yours are flimsy and negotiable, the roller coaster starts. They know they can push. And once you're emotionally hooked, the real tests of how much they can get away with begin. For example, will you tolerate tantrums, double standards, and other forms of abuse without holding them accountable? If you do, the devaluation stage begins and the second con job starts. If you refuse to tolerate their bad behavior, typically the relationship will end. Either you end it because you have enough self-respect to walk away, or they end it in a blaze of projection, gaslighting, and victim playing. Whichever way that occurs, because you're too healthy to get involved, or they run screaming into the night that you never really know what love is. Good riddance, okay? Recognizing their game is the first step to reclaiming your power. Once you see the pattern, you will realize that saying good riddance is the healthiest boundary you can set. Now, let's go to the next section. Relationships with borderlines, narcissists, and histrionics are one long con job. Love bombing is a lie. Yes, I know it felt real at the time and your feelings were real, but nevertheless, the love bombing itself was a lie. What else do you call it when someone pretends to be someone they're not, manipulating you into trusting, admiring, and loving them only to hurt and exploit you later? It's a con job by a nut job that typically happens in 3 acts. First, the love bomb con. Second, the it's all your fault con. And third, the if you really love me and want to go back to the way it was in the beginning, you'll tolerate my abuse con. Now I'm going to break down each of these cons and how they seamlessly feed into each other, trapping you in what typically becomes an endless cycle of manipulation and abuse. Now, here we go. The first con job, the love bomb. The person you thought you fell in love with, yeah, they don't exist. You fell in love with a patchwork quilt of pathology stitched together from TV series and film characters that they mimic. Many clients report recognizing their things that their partner says as dialogue that they ripped straight from shows like, for example, Grey's Anatomy, or even scarier, their victim narratives become plagiarized from shows like The Handmaid's Tale. One client's ex told their custody evaluator that he ripped off her fingernail with pliers. And she told the evaluator this, I believe, just a few short weeks after that happened in an episode of The Handmaid's Tale. And of course, there would be some lasting damage from that, and there was none. So bad liar, which is frankly good for my client. The evaluator didn't buy it. Okay. They also gather parts of their false self or persona, public persona, from tried and true manipulation tactics that worked in previous relationships. Then there's the emotional intensity, which is usually indicative of pathology that clients mistake for emotional intimacy. And then there's the perfect mirror reflection of your qualities, likes, dislikes, values, and style. This is all the ingredients of a love bomb here. And then, of course, the salesperson level flattery that typically preys upon, at least in my clients' cases, their insecurities and deep thirst for unconditional love and acceptance that usually stems from childhood wounds. So these masks that they wear are crafted and designed to reflect everything you thought you wanted in a partner: empathy, affection, admiration, and all carefully tailored to seduce. But eventually, the mask slips. It always slips. Maybe it was a sudden outburst or a moment of cruel indifference. That is when the reality of who they are starts to emerge, and the person you thought you knew begins to disappear. The nightmare at the end of the relationship, that is the same person you met at the beginning. You just couldn't see it. Or maybe you ignored the red flags early on. The ideal person you believed in is nothing but a mask. And underneath that mask, an unstable, immature, selfish, and cruel professional victim who will sneer at you with contempt while abusing you, and then turn around and claim that you are the abuser. So, when you're desperate to return to the beginning of the relationship, what you're really yearning for is a return to the lie. Think about it. If your borderline, narcissistic, or histrionic ex hid their true nature while seducing you, it shows that they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew if they revealed the angry, destructive toddler from the beginning, there wouldn't be a second date with you. It's a con job. Okay, now let's go on to the second con job, in which the narcissist, borderline, and histrionic will blame you for everything. So the second con job begins as the love bombing con job ends. This transition can be abrupt and body jarring, or it can happen gradually. But either way, the next big lie is this: it's all your fault. Their disinterest, cruelty, and generally shitty behavior, yeah, that's on you. And according to them, it's now your job to fix everything. And if you're a codependent, you probably take that job on eagerly and gladly. So, what exactly have you done to turn your adoring soulmate into a petulant, angry, emotionally volatile jerk? It could be anything. Something you did or something you didn't do. Maybe it's something you're doing too much of or not enough of. You love your family, friends, or even your dog more than you love them. You care too much about your job, or maybe you don't work enough so she can focus on her Etsy art business. But then, if you're working too much, she has to cheat on you because you're never around. Or you're only exercising to attract other women, yet she doesn't want to have sex with you because you're not in shape anymore. In other words, this porridge is too hot. This porridge is too cold. This chair is too hard. This chair is too soft. See the pattern? You haven't changed, and it's not all your fault. The devaluation will happen no matter what you do. Even if it were possible to be the quote unquote perfect partner. Because here's the reality. Your borderline narcissist or histrionic girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever, hasn't changed either. I repeat, you're just starting to see the first cracks in their mask. Now, this is where the confusion sets in for many clients. You're being blamed for everything, and it leaves you questioning your own reality. You might start wondering, what if it really is all my fault? Am I doing something wrong? Am I all of these horrible things that she or he is accusing me of? But those glimpses behind the mask, the emotional outbursts, the manipulation, the sudden shifts in behavior, in reality, these are the first signs of who they really are. They can't keep up the love bombing charade forever. And now you're seeing them for who they truly are, not the version they want you and everyone else to believe in. Okay, and now the third con job, or what I call the mega mind bleep con job. I love you, you're perfect, now change. One moment you're their soulmate. The next, everything they once adored about you becomes a problem. One of the cruelest tricks in a narcissist or borderline's bag of mind bleepery is that the very qualities they claimed attracted them to you in the beginning are the same ones they later use to devalue you. Suddenly, you're expected to change who you are and become someone you're not, just so they can pretend to be someone they're not. If that sounds crazy, that's because it is. You're expected to change who you are and become someone you're not, so you can all pretend that they're still this person that they never were. They want you to act like they're still the person they pretended to be during the love bombing stage. I may sound like a broken record here, but I'm going to say it again. The reality is they have not changed. They've just gradually stopped masking who they really are as they become more comfortable with you and secure in the relationship, meaning that their security in the relationship is that they've determined that you're not going to go anywhere if they continue to mistreat you. Okay? So basically, what they're telling you that it's all your fault they're acting this way, and if you would just do everything they want, things will get better. Yeah. They're basically they're peeing on your leg and want you to pretend that it's rain. The real issue is that you are seeing them clearly, and that's a problem for them. To keep the peace, such as it is, you will be expected to ignore the reality of who they are. And to do that, you'll have to go along with their gaslighting, projection, manipulation, and other abuse. And that is a really, really unhealthy choice if you decide to make it. So let's break down this mind bleep, okay? At first, you're the most amazing person they've ever met, the best sex ever. They've never felt this way before. They adore your talents and love your devotion to family, friends, and your work ethic. They're into everything you enjoy, or at least act thrilled to try your hobbies and interests. But after you're emotionally invested, admiration turns into complaints and demands. The praise for your loyalty to family and dedication to work transforms into resentment when you don't drop everything and everyone for them. Then, disappointment sets in, whether it's based on something real or imagined. Once the roller coaster reaches its summit, the torturous descent begins. From their point of view, you're always falling short. You're trapped in a funhouse mirror reality where their withholding admiration has become a tool to keep you constantly striving for approval. It's the proverbial carrot that is just forever out of reach. How could they possibly trust you or even be civil to you when you forgot the 18th anniversary of their pet goldfish Ivan's death? See, you don't love them. Proving your love now means tolerating their childish, destructive, and abusive behavior. You sacrifice the people and things that matter to you, all in the hope of keeping them happy. And that is a fool's errand, my friends. Occasionally, you might catch a glimpse of the person you thought you knew from the love bombing days, sparking the hope that maybe things will change. But again, here's the harsh reality. True personality change is difficult and rare for them and for you. As they become more of who they are and have always been, you begin to change too. These aren't positive changes, though. They're most often the long-term emotional, psychological, and physical effects of abuse. So, if you're still holding out hope that your borderline or narcissistic ex will be different for the next guy, spoiler alert, the same painful cycle that you experienced is awaiting him. The one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that, to infinity and beyond. True personality change requires self-awareness, accountability, and a genuine desire to grow. For narcissists and borderlines, the need to protect their false self makes this nearly impossible. Even on the rare occasion when maybe they acknowledge some wrongdoing, they still blame others, play the victim, and demand your love and support while continuing their abusive behavior. So, will your BPD or NPD ex be different with the next guy? Yes and no. The love bombing persona might morph to better seduce the next fellow, but it's just a new mask covering the same old clusterfuck of cluster B traits. A better question would be, is your borderline, histrionic, or narcissistic ex capable of true change and growth? That is the question, and the answer to that is no, probably not. If you're still hoping your ex will miraculously revert to the love bomber of yore for the next guy and permanently remain that person, well, that's a different issue. This speaks to wishful thinking, the hope that if you just try harder and endure more abuse, you will return to love bombing land. Holding on to this wishful thinking is really a form of self-blame, telling yourself that if you just tried harder, you could bring back the person you first met. But even if your BPDX is accurately diagnosed and, say, enters dialectical behavior therapy, change doesn't mean becoming that fantasy ideal they pretended to be way back when. At best, DBT might help your ex manage their worst impulses and Accept that actions have consequences and realize that experiencing consequences is not abuse. At worst, your borderline ex might gain an enabler in their therapist. And I have written extensively about this, and there are videos of those articles as well. And that means someone who excuses her behavior and reinforces her victimhood, which is not good for you. Either way, there is no going back to the person who love bombed you. Sorry, all the notifications are going off at once because that person was never real. So what exactly are you afraid of missing out on? A healthy, loving relationship or the illusion of one? If you're worried that your ex will somehow become a better person for the next guy, this fear of missing out on love is likely a sign of unresolved childhood issues. In my practice, I see this as the wounded child within, a part of you still desperate for the love of a rejecting, abusive parent. The part of you that's afraid of missing out isn't longing for your ex. It's the wounded child still hoping for love from someone who couldn't or wouldn't love you back. Children who feel unloved by their parents often believe it's their fault, clinging to the idea that if they could just be better, do better, or change somehow, they'd finally earn that love they crave. Isn't the hope that an abusive ex will magically transform into a loving, decent human being the same kind of magical thinking a wounded, unloved child engages in? It is. Holding on to this magical thinking, believing that if you just do better, they'll finally change, is a survival instinct you learned as a child. And now it's keeping you trapped in a cycle of disappointment and pain. So to wrap things up, it's more important, rather than asking or worrying that your ex is going to be different for the next guy, it's so much more important to focus on healing yourself and not fixing your borderline or narcissistic ex. The former is possible, the latter is not. So you heal by protecting your inner wounded child from people who continue to lie and hurt you, because you matter. Protecting yourself now means choosing to give the love and care to yourself that you did not receive from those who should have valued you most. You were no more at fault for an abusive, borderline, or narcissistic ex's behavior than you were as a child for an abusive parent's behavior. And just as you weren't responsible for fixing your parents' dysfunction, you're also not responsible or capable of fixing an abusive ex, except now that you're an adult, you have agency. You're not physically and financially in all the other ways that children are dependent on their parents as an adult, which means it is now your responsibility to get yourself out of this situation and start working on the issues that attracted you to this borderline or narcissistic ex in the first place, okay? And yes, to answer the question in the title of this article, yes, the next guy or gal will be love bombed just like you were. But eventually, that too will turn into a painful mind bleep, just as it did for you. So instead of feeling jealous or fearing you're missing out, wish the next guy good luck, because he's gonna need it, and your abusive ex good riddance. Let go of the fear of missing out and start focusing on the love and healing that you deserve. And the only person who can truly give you that is you. All righty. That wraps up another video. Again, I am Dr. Tara Palmatier of shrinkformen.com. Thank you for watching. Let's see. Oh, what else do I say at the end of these things? Yes. If you have a question or would like to schedule a session with me, you can reach me at shrinkformen@gmail.com or shrinkformen@protonmail.com. Those email addresses are in the About section of this video, along with the link to the article this video is adapted from and all of my social media stuff. So again, thank you. Have a good day. Happy Halloween. And I should have more time in the coming weeks to do a video a week. October was a bit of a jam-packed month, but things should be slowing down a little bit next week. So check back. Again, have a great day. Happy Halloween. Bye.